to our January 14th, 2025 Governing Board meeting for the Prescott Unified School District. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Carly to lead us today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the approval of the agenda, item 3A, consider approving the agenda. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
It's been motioned. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of the minutes, item 4A, consider approving the minutes from the regular study and voting session meeting of December 3rd, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion and get a second?
I'll second that.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Presentations, item 5A, Air Force JROTC CTE presentation. We have Tiffany Bailey. I know I screwed up. Sorry, Tiffany. And Cadet Major Hannah Block.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Tiffany, your CTE director, and it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce you to Hannah Block. She is a dynamic, intelligent, and very funny senior student. I was fortunate to have her as a student when I was still in my Spanish classroom as a sophomore. So this is a real lovely come full circle moment. Cadet Major Hannah Block was the Corps commander for the most recent Air Force JROTC inspection that we completed just last week. They were here on Tuesday after we came back from our 2-week break. She was responsible for ensuring that the inspector was briefed on the Corps' 24-25 unit goals and performance measures. She and the entire unit was given an exceeds standards ranking on the briefing from Mr. Scott Roxborough, who was the person from the regional headquarters who conducted the inspection. Hannah worked hard with her fellow cadets to guarantee that all of the checklist items were organized and completed before the inspection. Additionally, Hannah is involved in challenging AP coursework. Very recently, she was involved in the state level of the We the People competition in Phoenix. That was just last weekend. She's been busy. And one last thing, she may or may not, don't read too far into it, be very well acquainted with the Badger mascot costume that shows up on occasion at Friday Night Lights. That's all I'm going to say. It's my pleasure to introduce Hannah. Thanks for having us tonight, and I'd like her to tell you about her experience, and we're super proud of her. Go for it, Hannah.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. So I just have a quick little speech that I would like to give about our CTE programs. Good evening. I am Cadet Major Hannah Block, the current commander of Prescott High School's Junior ROTC. I am also a member of the dual enrollment. I am also a dual enrollment student under the MIC TED Fire Science program. I would like to briefly discuss the benefits CTE has given me over the past 4 years in JROTC and in the past 2 years of dual enrollment. As of last Tuesday, our JROTC Corps was awarded Distinguished Unit for the 18th year in a row. As the commander, thank you. As the commander, I had a major role in speaking with the inspector and in explaining how our unit operates. Without the speaking abilities and person skills I have gathered through JROTC, I would have never been able to accomplish that. 4 years ago, I would have never imagined myself being in that position or even speaking in the room that I am currently in. JROTC does an amazing job at preparing cadets for life, which is the ultimate goal in the end. We, being a military-oriented class, pride ourselves on the Air Force core values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. We teach all of our cadets to live their lives following these values. JROTC strives to make students successful, honorable members of society after they leave the Corps. It has certainly done so for me. The unconditional support of our unit from our school staff and admin, along with the community, is why we strive for greatness and is always appreciated by our cadets, myself, and my instructors. As for PHS's partnership with Yavapai and Mountain Institute, I have learned an immense amount of material that I can use immediately out of high school. My experience as a dual enrollment student has been wonderful. Knowing that I don't have to worry about absolutely any fees is an incredible feeling, especially because I was the one having to pay for high school, or my college. Last year, I was in the medical assisting program, which was a great program and very beneficial to me in a lot of ways that I can apply to in my career. Currently, I'm enrolled in the fire science program through the Yavapai campus off of Sheldon. This program has seriously changed my life and has helped me learn a lot of the necessary fundamentals of firefighting just within the first semester. Because I'm a senior, MICTED has already given me a scholarship to attend the Fire Academy and EMT next year at Yavapai College for free. Knowing that I have the support of MICTED to help me continue my education to get my certification for free takes a huge weight off my shoulders. I am incredibly lucky to have so many wonderful people backing up this program. My instructors and mentors make my dream possible through this program for all of what they do. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say or have any questions?
I was just going to give a quick remark on CTED. It's amazing how many people I meet out in the community who are so, they don't understand why we don't do any kind of vocational education in this community. And it gives me an opportunity to very much educate them on not only do we have a lot of ed in this community and school district, more than I ever had when I was going to high school. So it's absolutely incredible to me, and it just, I just love what we're doing with that program.
So, Hannah, I wanted to ask you, like, is your plan to go into the fire service?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you hoping to stay local with that, or?
It really just depends on where I'm at that time, but immediately if I want to go into a fire station or work as an EMT, like, I would plan to do that here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Carly, you work with Hannah, right, in
I do.
AHS, right? Yeah.
I do. Hannah's one of my very, very good friends, actually.
Yeah.
I feel grateful to have the opportunity on just the insight with the CTED program and all she's doing. It's really wonderful to just get to be a part of.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well said. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight and presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is item 5B, a challenge coin presentation. So, first person that I would like to recognize is Miss Judy Stencel.
I don't see her.
Is she not here?
She's here.
Oh, geez.
She just
Oh, geez, Judy, sorry.
Lady.
Did
She
we,
just snuck in.
I think this is a surprise. Okay, so Judy,
I was told I had to come because I just represent my department. And
You are?
Technically,
are.
that's true.
they lied, okay?
they did. So you can blame Jamie for this, okay, because she nominated you. But I'm going to read this, okay, so everybody understands why Judy is being recognized, and we're going to present our coin tonight. So Judy went above and beyond in organizing the Winter Wellness Fair for PUSD students in need. This annual event connects families experiencing tough times with community resources and helps to ensure that no child goes without gifts during the holidays. While the district homeless coordinator has taken on this role for some years, this was Judy's first time facilitating this event, and it was an amazing success. Through her tireless efforts, heartfelt care for our students and their families, and collaboration with district staff and community members, she nearly doubled the number of students who received Christmas gifts. Over 146 PUSD children in need from preschool through high school received gifts for this year alone. In addition, many families were connected with additional resources through the Family Resource Centers, from coats and shoes to referrals to community organizations for assistance with food and other needs. The gratitude of these families were demonstrated in tears and thank yous as moms and dads came to the fair to pick up their children's gifts. Judy collaborated with multiple church groups, school nurses, and scores of generous PUSD staff and community members who purchased gifts for our kids. We're grateful for everyone who participated, but especially want to recognize Judy for the many, many, many hours of work it took to pull this off. Thank you, Judy. So you get, this is a PUSD school board coin.
Thank
and
you.
We just want to present it to you.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very collaborative. I could not have pulled this off with that many people by myself at all, just so you know. Next year, I think we're going to try to move it here over to the Washington School because I think like to have everybody in one big location might be a lot of neat stuff, and I won't have to move all the presents so many times. So there's that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. And the next two individuals we would like to recognize is Miss Hammerstead and Miss Dillon, the younger. Come on up. Now I'm going to ad-lib this one. I'm not going to read it, okay? Is it Miss Dillon still?
Yeah,
It is. And when is it going to change? Is it changing?
it will change,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
That
Not
one's
this
much
year.
harder to say.
Oh, what is it? What's it going to be?
Venezia.
Venezia. All right, Mrs. B. Okay. So this is kind of firsthand for me. Luckily, my son Gavin is in your classroom, so I know how hard you all work. And if you don't know, we've actually added a third classroom to Lincoln because of the demand. And you've been teaching with 28 students in each of the classrooms. 27, 28. And now we're actually going to be down to, is it 18? Wow, you guys lasted the whole semester. But this kind of is derived because there was a parent that was in your classrooms and commended you on how well you worked with the kids. Nobody was left unattended. I mean, you do what you do, right? And you did it without, well, I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, but not without tears or whatever it might be. But I mean, there may not even be tears because it's just what you do, right? So all I know is that my son comes home, and obviously he has a tremendous experience, as do all of them. So we want to recognize you as from a community, and thank you for all the hard work you've done and will continue to do for our district. So thank you. Congratulations, you just got married too. That's what I would say, right? All right. That's why we're number one, right? Okay. All right, next item is item 5C, standards-based instruction. Kelsey.
Yes. Good evening and welcome to our new board members who are joining us tonight for the first time. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about where we are with instruction and what practices we have in place. A lot of this for our returning board members is information you've heard before, but wanted to make sure we set a good foundation for you as you begin this journey as board members and you have a good idea of where we're at with instruction. So our big initiatives that you're going to hear about pretty frequently are standards-based instruction, beyond textbooks, and PLCs. That stands for Professional Learning Communities. So what do those mean and how do they impact our classrooms? First, what is standards-based instruction? We know that we are required to teach state standards from the Department of Arizona, or the Department of Ed in Arizona. That's the foundation of everything we do. That's what we look at first and foremost, and that's how we build instruction. So with standards-based learning, we're making sure that we are putting those standards first and foremost. It can be easy to fall into the habit of just relying on curriculum or textbook resources to guide our instruction. We want to make sure that we are teaching each of those standards to the level of proficiency that's expected. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done on a teacher's end to really analyze and determine what does proficiency mean for each of those standards. And so that's the work that we've really been digging into this year, which has made a difference in our classrooms, and it's changing how teachers are thinking about instruction. The premise of standards-based learning is you probably aren't going to see a big difference when you walk in from classroom to classroom, because the things that are happening in classrooms will not change a whole lot. Really, what does change is how teachers are thinking about those standards and how they're going to put instruction together. But instruction is still great instruction, and you're going to see that within every single one of our classrooms. Standards-based learning is a continuous cycle of learning. It's not a one and done. You don't learn it on Tuesday and you move on to something new on Wednesday. We know that we are dealing with human beings and we learn at different paces, and some might need more support, some might need less. And so it's really going through this process of analyzing those standards, planning, teaching, looking at learning, what skills do they need, and then using assessments to determine, did they get what we were trying to teach them? Are they proficient, or do they need some additional practice? If they are proficient, what can we do with those kiddos to keep moving them forward? And then grading falls into that too, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But it's a continuous cycle, not only from standard to standard, but within the same standard, to make sure that we're offering opportunities for enrichment and reteach. So really, how does standards-based instruction help our teachers? So it's a guaranteed and viable curriculum. We are making sure that if standards are the focus of our instruction, and we have a clear idea of what is that end goal, that's the same from class to class. And I will tell you, an area that I think the Department of Ed can grow is to give us more specifics about what proficiency means for those standards. There is not enough information, and so that's why you see a variety of interpretations about what a standard means. And so that's where our teachers are spending a tremendous amount of time going, what does this truly mean, and what is that end goal that we're trying to measure? So again, it's prioritizing that. When it comes to state assessments, which then lead to school letter grades, it's all based off of how are students performing on Arizona state standards. We have clear ideas for proficiency, and we're reporting on that, not only to students, but to parents and families. The magic of standards-based instruction is that we know the end goal, but teachers can get to that end goal in a variety of ways. That's where they get to add their magic and that flair to their classroom and to the instruction that they're providing. There's not just a one-size-fits-all for education, and we know that our teachers are super creative and smart, and they can come up with lots of creative ways to help students reach proficiency. It also connects not only general education, but special education and intervention students together, because we know what that end goal is for proficiency, and we can look at all of those steps that it takes to require students to get there. So where do we intervene? How do we intervene? What do we intervene with? And it also ensures higher order thinking. Our standards set the bar pretty high. And so if we're always striving to reach those, we know we have a high bar set for all of our students. And then ways to help them get there, which is most important. How does it benefit our learners? So it focuses on every child, every day, no matter where they're at. Teachers are using those expectations to assess students and go, okay, if they've got it, we're going to offer some enrichment. If they don't, what can we do to help continue to teach them to get them where we need them to be? Goals are pretty concise. Teachers know what they're working towards. Students know what they're working towards. We also have some great opportunities for students to use that data to self-reflect and to set goals for themselves for where they want to be. Targeted feedback is a part of that process. Along that learning ladder of skills to be proficient at a standard, what are the specific areas that we can focus on to get students to proficiency? And then the end goal for standards-based learning, that's our last step, which we're working on implementing for next year, is standards-based report cards. And so reporting on standards. And the most important part about that is right now we're in a traditional A to F system from anything from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And actually I should say first grade through 8th grade, because kindergarten has been doing standard-based report cards. It is identifying each of those standards that were taught throughout a quarter and giving parents and students feedback on, is your student proficient at this standard? If not, here's where they're at, and here's some ways that you can help build that partnership with the school to help your students become proficient. So it's giving a lot more information around what parents and school can do together to help our students continue to grow. And so you'll be hearing more about standards-based report cards as we go throughout this year and as we finalize that process and look at rolling those out for next year. Now, where does Beyond Textbooks fit into this? So Beyond Textbooks is a program from the Vail Unified School District. Standards-based learning is what we're doing. It's the structure for instruction. Beyond Textbooks are the resources that help our teachers to build instruction. They have some really great unwrapped documents for standards. Again, I told you the state doesn't provide enough context about what proficiency means. So Vail has created documents for every single core subject standard of this is what proficiency means and this is how you can help reach it. Those unwrapped documents, they take a standard that's normally one sentence, maybe two, and it's 3 or 4 pages long. That's how much additional information is needed to help our teachers really identify what proficiency is. They also have created short formative assessments, so 5-question quizzes and benchmark assessments that help assess how students are doing on that standard. They're aligned to that end learning goal. We know that districts who use and who partner with Beyond Textbooks are highly successful school districts. This is a process that Vail has been building for years and years, and they are one of the top performing districts within Arizona. And so we know that if we're using these materials in the same way and sometimes in a little bit different ways, that we're going to start to see some of our state assessment data improve as well. Now, why Beyond Textbooks? We actually started this process of creating unwrapped documents and formative assessments in the 22-23 school year. We knew when we started that was going to be at least a 3 to 5 year process where teachers were going to be taking a lot of their professional development time to be building these materials. And when we were exposed to what Vail has to offer, we went, okay, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. This can help us jump ahead 3 to 5 years, and we can then focus on really great instructional practices. And so that's where we're at this year. This is our first year of fully implementing the assessments and the expectations of using those instructional materials for teachers to use during planning. The next, and we're really good at acronyms, by the way, so Beyond Textbooks is BT, Professional Learning Communities is PLC. Again, standards-based instruction is the what we're doing. It's how we're doing instruction. Beyond Textbooks is the resources that we're using. And then PLC, Professional Learning Communities, is how we're organizing teachers to do this work. And so when we talk about PLC, the first part is that professional component to PLC. And you'll hear this a lot when it comes to school district. There's a lot of schools that have adopted this philosophy. But we know education is constantly changing and evolving. It is never stagnant. The expectations for our kids are constantly changing and evolving. So we as professionals need to continue to do the same so that we're providing the best possible opportunities for our kids. And so it's that remaining current in practices and what's going to help our kids be successful when they get out into the real world. One of the things that always sticks with me is that, especially when you look at our elementary kids, we're preparing them for jobs that we don't even know about. They haven't even been created yet. So we're trying to stay ahead of that curve as much as possible. And sometimes things move really quickly, like when you look at AI and those kinds of things, but we're doing our very best. Teachers are truly lifelong learners. And then learning, we know that this is a big part of why we are all in education. We know that when we're doing and talking about learning with the community, we're investing in not only our kids, but also in our adults as well. And then community. To me, this is the most important part. Teachers could be doing all of this work in isolation, but that doesn't necessarily help them grow and challenge them in the same way that it does when they're working with a team. We know from experience that we are stronger when we work as a team than we do when we work as an individual, and so that is part of this philosophy. And what I love and I'm seeing in our schools change is, I might have a 3rd grade class. Those are not just my 3rd graders. They're all of our 3rd graders. So from interventionists to special teachers to the 4th grade teachers who are getting them next year, we're all working towards the same goal and we're doing it together as a team. So it's pretty powerful and I love seeing the collaboration that's happening in our schools. With PLC, there's 4 main questions that we focus on during the time that teachers are working together. The first one is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? Do we have a clear picture of that end goal? And so we are using our standards, those unwrapped documents from Beyond Textbooks, the summary of standards, which is also from Beyond Textbooks, a calendar of standards. We have our whole year paced out, and that's in our DIGs. Again, another acronym. That's our instructional guides. And then targeted intervention to help get to where we need to go. The second question, we know what we're teaching. Next question teachers have to ask themselves is, how are we going to know if our students have learned it? What's our measure going to be? And so we're using common formative assessments, CFAs, we refer to them a lot. Those are those quick 5-question check-ins. Most of those are done on a computer now, so we get instant data, and students are practicing with those technology skills that they have to have. And we also have quarterly summative assessments. So not only did they get the content in the moment, but are they retaining that information as we look at the end of the quarter benchmark? We also have rubrics and then additional ways to analyze data, and they do that as a team weekly. The next question they ask themselves is, how will we respond if a student has not learned the content, if they're not proficient yet? And that's where we bring in reteach. That's where we bring in intervention. We have additional formative assessments. We also have daily practice reviews that we can build in as well. So depending on where that student is, do they need the whole standard retaught? Do they need part of it retaught? We have a variety of ways to meet that child exactly where they're at. And then the last and final question is, how will we respond if students have met proficiency? Instead of them sitting in a class and just hearing that same information, maybe again in a reteach opportunity, how are we going to push them? How are we going to take them to that next level? And I'll tell you, this is one of the most challenging questions that we have to come across, but it is also one of the most fun. That's where teachers can be the most creative. That's where they can be very inventive. We do have learning targets for that highly proficient. One of the differences between us and Vail teaches to the highly proficient. So they have that identified for every single standard, and they say, nope, that's our goal. For every child, we're meeting above that. That's always our goal, but we want to make sure we're meeting kids where they're at, moving along that continuum.
Do you see that changing in the future?
I think some teachers have adopted that philosophy already, and they're using those resources from Vail because that is all outlined. None of that comes from the state. That was all built from Vail teachers. For this year, year 1, proficiency is our goal. For those students who are at proficiency, we are asking them to do enrichment opportunities, but we're not at a place, we feel yet, where we can say our expectation for all kids is highly proficient. We want to work towards proficiency, but I do see that being a long-term goal.
Kelsey, one other question on that. Does that feel like, to me, it sounds like we need additional parapros or staff to help help those students that are either falling below or that are highly proficient that need the extra. I mean, do you see that as a potential with this approach, or do you think our teachers and the current staff we have can handle this?
I will tell you, our principals, we've got a couple out here right now, but they're working magic with master schedules to create blocks of time where they're utilizing current staff, whether that's paraprofessionals, sometimes even elective teachers are teaching some interventions, our interventionists. I mean, it's an all hands on deck during those intervention times. So I don't see us needing additional staff. We've been very creative with scheduling and blocking out intentional time, and it's working pretty well so far.
All right. Thanks.
If the state provides us significantly more resources,
Absolutely.
we would come to the board.
Absolutely. We
I
would
have
take
lots
them.
of ideas with what I can do with that. One's bring class sizes down, one is do exactly what you said, another is pay teachers and all of our staff more. There's lots of things we could do, but yeah, we don't foresee that in the immediate future, so we're making plans to make this work as well as we can with current staffing levels.
So finally, when we talk about professional learning communities, when is that work happening? We know our teachers are incredibly busy. You can see here, these are we call them our collaborative team time. That's our PLC time. These are all of our Friday dates that are dedicated for teachers to be working as a collaborative team on those 4 questions. So what do we want students to know? How are we going to know if they've learned it? What are we going to do if they've learned it? And what are we going to do if they haven't? So when we talk about Friday time, it is crucial for our teachers. This is where they're doing that heavy lifting of where is each kid, how are we going to meet their needs in that next step, and then what are we going to plan for our next standard that's coming up. It takes a lot of work, and I could not be more proud of our teachers. This has not been an easy year with really kind of putting all of these new things in place, but they have risen to that challenge, and they are truly doing their best to make this work. I see us over the next few years really refining some of our processes, especially around that enrich and reteach time and those opportunities. But our teachers are digging in and they're doing the work, and our kids are seeing it, and we're seeing it within our classrooms as well. So that's what we do on our Fridays.
I have
Yes, jump in.
I always have a couple. You mentioned that for kids that need to be retaught standards, there are additional CFAs that the teachers can give. Are those also on Beyond Textbooks, or do we need to, Beyond Textbooks provides those as well?
Yes. So Beyond Textbooks has what they call a CFA 1, which is Common Formative Assessment 1, which you give to your entire class. Where is everybody at? For students who need a reteach opportunity, who need additional time practicing that same skill or that same standard, we do have a CFA 2 that is taken. There's also, they do have some additional CFAs built into there, so we could have a 3 and a 4. We're not utilizing those because that's over-testing our students at that point. We know that by benchmark is another check of after a quarter of instruction, do they have it or not? So some students might have 3 opportunities within a year or within a quarter to take those 5-question assessments on that standard.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Do you want to go on, or want me to ask my next one?
Go ahead. I'll ask after you. I'm good.
I have one more
might ask
question
someone
on
already
the
gonna-
standard-based report cards. We're
Yes.
using them in kindergarten already.
Yes.
I'm wondering the reaction of parents. How are parents feeling? Are they feeling they're overwhelmed with standards? So many when they were used to seeing an A, a B, or C?
So I don't think parents have seen our standards-based
haven't
report
seen
card
them
yet
yet?
because
Okay.
we actually just in our leadership meeting this morning finalized our template
Got
that
it.
we want to
Okay.
use. So it's a process. We've identified the standards per quarter, per subject area. We have our template done, so we're going to continue to build. What I do know is we have a lot of communication that's planned around standards-based report cards because we do know that that's a shift. So we want to help parents and families feel as comfortable with that as possible. So not only will we have some parent information nights in the fall, teachers, the plan is to talk through those standards-based report cards, K-8 and parent-teacher conferences, which happen in September before report cards go home. And then we'll have additional information that goes home with every report card on here's some tips on how to read this and how to contact your teacher if you do have any additional questions. I was part of the kindergarten standards-based report card that rolled out when I was the principal at Taylor
Right.
Hicks. And with our teachers really talking through those report cards with parents at first, because they were doing that during parent-teacher conferences as well, we didn't really have a whole lot of questions. Parents actually felt a little more empowered with the information and the knowledge that they had to go, okay, I know exactly what I can be working on with my student to help them become more proficient in some of these standards. So it's a lot more information, which can be overwhelming, but we will help support however we can with that.
So are we looking at K4 next fall?
We're looking at K-8.
K8 next fall?
Yes. And high school, we'll do some sort of modified version of standards reporting. We still want to share with parents where students are on high school standards. But high school just has such different expectations, and they need those letter grades for GPAs and so on. Any additional?
I do have a question on that, kind of that same note. When you're looking at a report card and you had mentioned that you have the standards all built out and you're reporting on the first quarter standards, for instance, and I have a child who's not proficient in one of them, will that ever be reported back to me? Because the following quarter, will we have all new standards that are being reported?
Yes.
How will a parent know if their child's caught up or even be able to track? You know, we can look at a letter grade and say, oh, well, they had a B last time and it's an A this quarter. That's, you know, we can measure growth a little bit. How does that work with standards-based?
So what I love about standards-based instruction, the philosophy as a whole, is that learning is a continuum. You might not master a first quarter skill until second or third quarter, and that's okay. Students will have opportunities to retake CFAs if they choose to. Again, we've got a variety of them, and we can build additional ones with the program that we do have. So they have lots of opportunity to learn that. When we look at a standards-based report card template, it will have first quarter standards, second quarter standards, third quarter. So you'll be able to go back and see if there was any change. We'll be able to add that in. Or that communication with teachers is really important too, to be able to talk through growth in areas of need.
Very good.
Good question.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And my other question was regarding your teacher groups. How do you group them as far as, is it just on individual campuses, like at the elementary level, or do they cross over to other campuses, and do they work particularly in the older grades within their grade level or within their subject matter? Like, how are you breaking those into groups?
And you're talking for those PLC groups?
Yeah.
Oh, great question. So K4 has a different challenge because they're our only group that is at different sites. Everyone else is contained within the same site. So our elementary schools do a lot of work at their site, but at least once a quarter we get them together as a grade level. And any decisions regarding pacing of standards or standards-based report cards, that's made as a grade level team across the district. So they're very used to working together. That can be a challenge on some of our Fridays because they don't have a lot of time when it comes to travel and all of those pieces, but we've been very creative and we found ways to get them together, and they work together really well. When it comes to 5th through 12th grade, they have a variety. So sometimes they work in content teams, which would be all the math teachers together, and sometimes it's grade level teams. So it could be the entire 6th grade meeting, or maybe math and science meet together. So they're meeting in a variety of ways to work and plan instruction.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah?
I just want to dig down on something Jen brought up on
Yeah.
So if a student is not proficient yet in quarter one,
Yes.
that instruction then on those standards is laddered, correct? So that you can go back and see, you don't just move on to the next standard with that student. They will be retaught on that until they get to proficient in quarter one? Or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What we find with students is sometimes they need just more time and more repeated exposure to get proficient at that standard. Or they're building up more skills than just one or two. They might have a bigger gap that it's going to take a while to
Right.
reach proficiency for that child. They do move on. So in core instruction, which is all of our students together, they are at a pretty fast pace, which is anywhere from 5 to 7 standards per quarter that they're teaching intentionally and that they're assessing and offering intervention on. We don't have the time or the ability to do that for every single one of our Arizona standards. There's just not enough time within the year. So they've identified essential standards, which is why we've narrowed it down to just 5 to 7 per quarter that we're assessing. It's not saying we're not teaching those other standards. Those are still being taught, but they're more supporting standards for the ones that are just crucial for students to be proficient or ready for the next grade level.
So is it right to assume then that if a student isn't proficient in quarter one, that's on their report card, but then in quarter two, they've improved, and they go up, and now they are proficient on
Yeah.
that quarter two standard, it's safe to assume they have gained proficiency in
Yes.
quarter one because they're built to ladder up on that.
Yeah.
So a parent, hopefully, if they don't attend the parent information sessions, if they don't understand this,
Yes.
they can see that their student is making progress because they went from not proficient to proficient
Absolutely.
in 1 or 2 quarters.
And they would see that on the report card, that this, my child was not proficient first quarter in this standard, but look, now it's second quarter, he is or she is proficient on that same standard.
Yes.
Okay, so the parents
Yes.
will be able to see.
Yes, and within the next few months, we'll show you the template. Again, we just finalized it today. We're working through, those last little kinks as far as adding that into our Power School system. But as soon as we have that finalized, we'll bring it to you and talk through process and what our plan is to roll this out to our families.
And how does this affect DIGs? This changes our DIGs a bit too.
Not
So we
necessarily.
Not necessarily?
Nope. So our standards-based report cards are built from the DIGs. So
Okay.
whatever's in the DIGs for quarter one
It's still there.
will be reflected on the standards-based report card, yes. Which is why we're a year behind with standards-based report cards, because we needed to fine-tune and work through a year of this pacing with these standards, because it is new, and then next year it'll be solidified for those report cards.
Perfect.
Okay? Thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Great.
Brett, you have a lot of
All right.
questions.
Thanks, Kelsey.
2 minutes. Thank you, Kelsey. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
appreciate it. Always enjoy reports.
Very exciting.
Item 6A, summary of current events. Mr. Tenney.
Okay. Thank you, those of you who are here for Challenge Coins and are heading out. Really appreciate you being here and everything that you do every day to help our kids. Love you guys. Thank you. All righty, very good. So, want to go to the first one? We've had, and I know that as we go through our consent agenda, the donations are always on there. 2 of these haven't shown up yet because they're more recent, et cetera. But we've had some really significant / unusual donations over the last little bit that I just wanted to bring up. One is that there's a couple that asked to remain anonymous that saw a news report, I don't know, several months ago about a couple someplace, I can't remember what state it was, someplace Texas or something like that, who had said, hey, how much do the kids in your district owe on their school lunches? We know there's some kids that are behind. And that couple in whatever state it was, we'll say it's Texas, paid off the entire debt for their district. And they said, we'd love to do that if we can. What's the amount? And so we did some digging and found out it was just north of $1,500. And they said, we'll totally do that. We've actually got a little more. So they made a $2,500 donation. And as of this week, we informed every single family, every single grade level, pre-K through 12. I'll tell you, the average lunch debt was, what was it, like 87 cents, something like that. It wasn't a big deal. We had a couple of kiddos that were in the 20s, but nobody was, $150. This wasn't life-altering for anybody. But what a great gesture. This family had heard something neat that other people had done to serve and improve and help their community somewhere else, and they said, we'd like to do that too. So they got with us and said, please don't mention our name, but we'd just love to do this for your community. We said, what would you like to do with the rest of the donation? We gave them a couple of ideas, and we regularly have families who, in addition to school lunches, sometimes a financial stretch, we have some fee-based activities and things that we do, lab fees for science or pay to play for high school or going on a field trip or whatever costs $2.50 to supplement what the school can do, whatever. They said, hey, take the extra $900 and put it into a fund to help families with that. I just thought that was super neat. All of the donations that we get from people are meaningful. They're awesome. I love when somebody donates $13.24 to the Family Resource Center. I think we got that tonight. All of those are great. But this is just kind of a neat one I wanted to bring to your attention. The next one was, you maybe remember the Lucas family from last year who I met at a fundraiser in town, and we just got chatting, and they said, we'd love to get back with you sometime. They donated $100,000 to the district last year to go where it was needed most for kids. And we thought, that's amazing. We had them come to a board meeting. We honored them. They were reluctant to do that, but we kind of twisted their arms a little bit. Anyhow, what a neat thing. Totally without contacting us, a couple of weeks ago, they sent us another check for $50,000. And just what neat people. I'm sure if I'd asked them, can I bring this up in a board meeting, they would have said no. So I didn't ask, and here we are. And that's just pretty neat. Is that going to alter our budget for the next 10 years, our $38 million a year budget that we spent 82% of on staffing? No, it's not. But boy, if we have a project here or there, a one-time cost that we need some additional money for, now we've got a little bit of flexibility that we didn't have before, thanks to a neat family. As well, there's a lady who actually passed away a couple of years ago in town. Some of you might recognize her name. Her name is June Ruth. We pulled up her obituary from, I think, was it Wade Clinton? Yeah, there you go. In 2022, thank you. 2022, she passed away. She'd been a nurse her whole life. She and her husband had lived in town for a while, born in St. Paul, Minnesota. At any rate, when she passed away, she left substantial amounts of money to several different organizations in town. One of them was our Hungry Kids Project that provides the food bags to families who are in need over the weekend. There's some families that are facing food insecurity and don't have enough food for their family over the weekends. And we have about 80 food bags that a really neat organization of mostly retired folks in town donate to and get together and put, whatever, some carrots and a thing of crackers, whatever, in bags for the weekend. And this lady had been involved in that, and in her will, she left that organization $216,000. Well, actually, you can see over $216,000. It was like a sixth of whatever, so it ended up being kind of a funky fractional type of a thing. But super, super neat. Sarah and I did some back of the napkin math, and I think Brian confirmed for us, we're looking at that'll entirely fund that program without any additional donations for 12 to 15 years.
Whoa. Wow.
Pretty neat.
That is a period after that.
It's supposed to be a period. Yeah. $260 million would even be better.
That would significantly change the budget.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that. That money doesn't actually flow through our district, et cetera, but it impacts our kids, and it's a program that our district helps facilitate. So super neat. And I just wanted to make mention of those. Two of those, two of them are going through the Education Foundation, and I think the last two, the larger ones, will show up on next month's report of donations, but pretty neat. Anyhow, so just some neat people who over the holidays got with us and said, we want to help. I love that. I love that. All right. We want to recognize the passing of a handful of people who meant a lot to our community. One is Colonel Fred Cohn, who served in the military for years and years, from Korea, I believe, Vietnam, etc. And the last part of his career was being a terrific substitute teacher in our schools. Adam, he went about 5'1", something like that. Yeah, okay. Not a real big guy. Older for sure, bushiest eyebrows you've ever seen, and kids loved him. Am I wrong? Kids loved having him. Oh, it's Colonel Cone, fantastic. You would think that if sometimes our kids are not on their very best behavior with guest teachers, which I'm reluctant to admit, and if there's someone who's going to abuse a substitute teacher, it might be somebody who's pushing 90 and is 5'1". He just had a great synergy with our kids. Largely focused on PHS and Granite Mountain and Mile High over the last few years. And he was just an institution. He was at him, I mean, almost every day, right? If he wasn't
On a daily basis, I got the pleasure of saying hi to Mr. Cohen.
If he wasn't at one of our middle schools, he was at our high school. And what a neat guy, and just passed away recently, as you can see. Some of you maybe heard the Air Force jet flyover on Saturday. That was in honor of him.
Shook the town.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Can I
didn't
Please.
realize
can we
it was that.
comment on this
Yeah,
at all?
of course.
We must.
So I'm going to try not to be too emotional, but Colonel Cone and I worked together for 21 years at Embry-Riddle, and if you think the high school students liked seeing him, you should have seen what the college students thought of him, because he's amazing. He moved into our neighborhood, and I used to see him and his wife walking in the neighborhood, and he remembered us every time we saw him. But we found out at one point that my wife is related to him, because we used to see him over at birthday parties for my wife's great aunt, who lived to be 103 years old. So there's longevity in this family. But just one of the best people you would ever want to meet. So I kind of forgot where I was going. Oh, the biggest thing I will remember about Colonel Cone is he did the Marine Corps commissioning ceremonies at the Embry-Riddle graduation. This man, this 5'2" tall person, colonel in the Marine Corps, used to get up on stage when it was held outdoors, and without a microphone, he would belt out this commissioning for the new officers in the Marine Corps so that people could hear him outdoors. It was amazing to watch. I just can't. I mean, he's a legend, and there should be a movie made about his life, actually, if you know the whole history of what he's been through in his life. There needs to be some type of a movie.
My favorite story about him is my oldest son, who's now 21, when he was in high school, came home, and he just talked about Mr. Cone. And I said, that's Colonel Cone. And I pulled up his story, and he was already impressed with him, so, as a person. And then I showed him about, you see all the awards and decorations on his chest. That is a phenomenal career that he also had, flying in Korea and Vietnam. I mean, he's a true hero, and he, even more so, what he contributed to our community. I mean, on his chest is a lifetime of a hero's lifetime, but he continued it all the way to well into his until he passed away, and the honors were just. And I think I was standing in the gym, and we were standing next to each other, right? In that, and we were, and the flyover went over, and it shook the YMCA gym. And I was like, "What is that?" I'm like, "That's for Colonel Cone," And so anyway, just very fitting. And thanks for recognizing him, because he is just he's an institution for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone who's made a huge impact on our nation, our community, and in our schools. Anybody who shows up to substitute teach for us twice is in my heart. This guy, hundreds of times.
Especially when they're 90 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, literally was substitute teaching for us at age 90. How many people would do that ever? That's just neat. And as well, we want to recognize the passing of Mr. Les Fenderson. Maybe we could do this. If you had Mr. Fenderson as a teacher in high school, would you raise your hand really quick?
My kids all did.
I think we had class together.
Nearly every one of us who are PHS graduates had Mr. Fenderson, probably for anatomy and physiology, maybe for something else. It was just terrific. Good man, great sense of humor, knew how to push people and get them to learn, and always did it with a great sense of humor. Has left a legacy in terms of his family and community in town. Great coach at the school. Passed away about a month ago, I think today, actually, and he will definitely be missed. Another person who's left a great legacy for so many people who grew up in Prescott.
Yeah, tremendous man. I don't think there was ever a teacher that was more feared and respected at the same time.
For sure.
You took his class, and I just want to read a little bit from his obituary, because his son Fred wrote this, and he just did an amazing job. But there's one particular portion of it that said, he set high expectations for his students, as every time they walked into the classroom, they had to pass under the, quote, "Through this door walks the cream of the crop," a sign hanging up overhead. If you were caught off guard or goofing around, it says, if you were caught goofing off, you would often get a bop on the back of the head. Yet you knew he loved you and simply expected more out of you. He would never take credit for the success of the countless physicians, dentists, veterinarians, physical therapists, nurse practitioners, nurses, pharmacists, contractors, CPAs, lawyers, etc., who took his anatomy and physiology class or played for him. But he would have a quiet smile of pride knowing he helped spur their confidence to achieve their dreams. Well said.
I would say he was the primary teacher that prepared me for college. I remember getting to college and feeling like, thank goodness I had Mr. Fenderson, because he really taught us, how do you take notes? What is expected of you? He just didn't let us get by with a lot. It was very good, and it definitely was a great college prep.
And I can have a personal experience about that if you're goofing off, but he still loves you. Because he caught us. I was his lab assistant my senior year. Wow. And the other lab assistants and I were in the back with the cats, trying to clean them up and clean up the room. And we were joking and being loud, interrupting his class. And he came back and got very stern with us. But he said, he made sure, he said, you know I love you, but you need to do all this stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so the cats came up. I have one very short story on the cats. One weekend in my house, all my daughters had him. There was this incredible smell coming from upstairs. And I thought, what is going on upstairs? I go upstairs into the bathroom. My oldest daughter has a cat in the bathroom because she had been involved in some kind of sporting event and got behind on dissecting the cat. So he let her bring it home for the weekend. So we dissected a cat.
I brought the brain home once,
You got the brain.
and my mom
We
was
have a
like,
cat,
what is
you have
that
a
in that
brain.
bag?
Yep.
I'm like, it's a brain of a cat?
Yep.
I can still smell the smell.
Yep.
I know, we do.
Absolutely. And as you were
takes you back
talking
to the
about being
classroom.
in the back room, I was like,
Yes,
no.
yes.
Forever.
Those cats.
Well, I knew him later on in life, luckily, and my sons affectionately call him Papa. He's just the most kind-hearted man. The first time I saw him after I came back home, he had a cat. It was a live cat in his house. And the cat's name was CB. Stood for Coyote Bait. He always had that sense of humor. So anyway, we love you, Les. We're talking about you, and we'll miss you.
We missed, absolutely. Go ahead. I think I shared with you in my board report, but I'd like the folks in the audience to know as well, we're constantly looking at our security processes and upgrading and whatnot. There's 3 or 4 things that we did this week, but one of them is we were able to test our mutual link system that will connect our administrators with one another and with law enforcement in the case of a safety emergency at school, and it went off without a hitch. We've got what we call Raptor emergency notification system that every one of our staff have available to them, so they can initiate a shelter-in-place or lockdown or whatever it needs to be. And Raptor can also initiate mutual link on the administrative end. And yeah, we spent an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. What was it, last Thursday morning, thank you. There's some screenshots from 2 of them from my phone. That was a video link from Mile High. Ashley Tetra just held up her phone. She can show the police, show us, here's what's going on, here's what it looks like, and I can identify exactly where in the school something's happening. We can share documents, we can share text, it's a radio feature. You can press the button talk kind of a thing in addition to, I mean, just all the things that hopefully we won't ever have to use for anything serious, but it can be used in other situations. But we're at a football game and Adam and I and Missy want to talk with each other about whatever it is and say, hey, could you go over to that corner and make sure those kids, don't throw that can at each other anymore, or whatever it is. So, yeah, that cat. There you go. Anyhow, that came off really well. And it's one of several things. We upgraded the fencing at Taylor Hicks, put a new gate there. What else did we do? 2 or 3 things that I reported to you. But we're always looking at what's next to be more prepared and to make things safer for our kids and our staff and our families. I think that might be it from me. There you go. Okay.
Thank you. Great report. Item 6A2, governing board members. Brett, you got anything?
Is this where I report what I've done in the last month since our last board meeting?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I did go to ASBA conference and enjoyed that, and just excited to learn.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks,
We're
man.
glad you're here.
All right, Jen.
I also went to the ASBA conference. I think district-wise, it was a little before we took the break, but I got to go to the early college meeting. My son that is a junior is applying for early college, and I had never even been aware that is around, and it is incredible. And so that was a real eye-opener for me, and I was just amazed that our school district offers that opportunity to these kids, that they can really get a head start and really have a lot of support in that first year of feeling like they're going to be super ready to go when they launch. So it's pretty awesome.
Vanessa, are you early college or dual enrollment?
She's early college.
Early college, yeah.
Oh,
That's
nice.
right. Yeah. Very.
So similar, I was able to attend the ASBA conference, which was great. Also got to attend the district office holiday party, which was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that.
Jen was there too.
Just an update, kind of, I haven't reported this yet, but I was elected to be the ASBA Yavapai County Director. So that means I'm on the ASBA Board of Directors, but I'm also a communication person for all the school district boards and superintendents in the area. So between the organization and board members and superintendents, I'll be sending out at least monthly emails with updates and things.
Got your email today.
So,
Yep.
pardon me?
We got your email today.
Yes, we did. Thank you. I'm glad you got it. That's important. And so this past weekend, I was at the ASBA Board of Directors meeting in Tucson, which was a fire hose of information and really not difficult, but it was just a lot to learn about. So I'm in the process of doing that. And I've contacted our county superintendent, Mr. King, and we're looking at setting up opportunities to speak at training sessions or with administrator meetings and things there. So off and running on that.
I too went to the conference, had a good time. But I did something very interesting today. I went to the college to work with the early college kids. I miss Vanessa though. With the women's group AAUW, when we put on today what was called a reality store, which was extremely interesting. The kids were asked to envision themselves at the age of 25, what career they had chosen by that age. Were they married? Did they have any children yet? Did they have a spouse who worked or didn't work? And we started with the salary we'd expect them to not actually bring home, but the salary they would get in a month. And then we started subtracting. This is what you would subtract for tax for the feds. This is what would come off for the state. This is what would come off for your housing. This was what would come off for your student loans. This is what would come off for food. This is what would come off for diapers. This is what would come off for home essentials, for entertainment, for gasoline, for auto mechanics. And then when we got to the bottom, they were hoping they were in the black, correct. And some of them weren't. And then that produces a very interesting conversation. Well, what happened there? And then some of them were in the black and were very proud of themselves because they had money left over. But it was absolutely wonderful. It was great to work with these kids because a lot of our early college kids had a general idea of what they wanted to do with their lives already. So it was just, okay, let's look at numbers. Let's really look at the numbers and see where you might be. And it's interesting how maybe the number of kids might have changed, from beginning to start of the day. Like maybe having 6 or 7 kids isn't going to work. So it's very interesting. Or maybe I can't go out as often. My entertainment costs would need to come down. But it was kind of fun to watch the subtractions keep coming. And how often can I get my hair cut? You know, that kind of thing. It's very fun.
That's a neat long-term partnership we've had with a
Yeah.
great local organization.
It's,
The American Association of
it's just-
University
it was
Women has done that
worth every
with our
second.
kids at the high school several times in the past.
Yeah.
You're right, it's the way
Hopefully
you
we can do it
described it.
again next year because it was just amazing. Yeah.
All right, that it, Jen?
Yep.
Great. Just so, obviously through the Christmas season, New Year's, we had the Christmas parade, so participated in the parade there on the Lincoln Float. That was a great experience. And then the Christmas caroling that went on every year that occurs on the south side of the courthouse. Tomorrow is the JROTC change of command. I know it's right around the corner, so I know Hannah, I think she's will be relief of our command, and then there will be a new person that'll be taking over. And that's at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, I believe, 5 to 5:30 at the high school.
And then just want to recognize, we have a student, and this just speaks to just the caliber of students that we have in our district, but Malia Harasa, she is a Flynn finalist. And so if you don't know the Flynn Scholarship, there's 1,000 kids throughout the state that even is eligible and apply. And she is a semifinalist, so that is whittled down to 80 students in that semifinalist. So she'll be going through that over the next few weeks, I believe. And so just amazing. We've had several Flynn scholars throughout our history.
How many we've had?
I'd love to
Adam,
get
do you
that
remember the
stat.
number?
I feel like I used to know that number, but
15-ish, 17-ish, it's somewhere around the same number as the ROTC years in a row.
Right, yeah.
At one point, it was for a school of our size, the most of any school in Arizona. I think at one point we had more than any school in Arizona total, and then for a school of our size. So yeah, we've had a good history with kids being very successful in that program.
I mean, we've seen Malia. She represented Alarac. She went overseas, and the daughter of Tom Harasa and Jen Matthews. I mean, Jessica. Yeah, thank you.
it's okay.
Don't tell her. I said
I won't.
it's not
It's
a
only
public forum.
recorded,
It's-
but it's
okay, that's good.
Can you pause that part of the recording? Is that-
Sorry, Jess.
You might not
Sorry,
have
Jess.
Jeez.
And, Malia is also, we'd like to bring her up, the board, in one of these months because she is representing us at the state under the Governor's Youth Commission. So just amazing things that she's doing.
Yeah, I'll just mention, Hannah was here this month, kind of at your invitation. The board members had said, hey, could we get some kids who've really benefited from some of the neat programs at Prescott High School to come and share with us? I think Mr. Freyer first brought that up as we were at the what am I trying to say? The day when YRMC came and did the career fair, medical careers fair. And you had a conversation with a kiddo that didn't have anything to do necessarily with the fair itself and said, holy cow, we've got kids doing things like that. And I said, yeah, we've got dozens of kids doing great things in so many programs. And I think at your suggestion, got with the other board members, said, would you like to hear periodically from some of the kids at the high school that are doing good things? They might have in mind where they're heading already, they might not, but just something that's benefited them. And you're right, Maritza would be a great one to have visit with us soon.
Awesome. Great. All right, now we'll go on to item 6A3, representatives. We'll start with Carly.
Go, Carla.
There's a lot. I have a lot. There's a lot of great things happening. Interact Club, which is Rotary sponsored, is tomorrow from 5 to 6, is doing their foreign exchange student party, which is a program they started. It's their first year doing it to try to make a smoother transition for foreign exchange students. So we have someone from Vietnam, Germany, and I believe Spain coming tomorrow to just get to know the teachers and our administration and students and things like that. We did bring up the JROTC, but Kelly Walker will be taking Hannah's position tomorrow. She's just very qualified as well. She is going to graduate early. I'm in mock trial, and she's the class president of that. And so it's just important, I think, to acknowledge those students. And, people like Hannah and Malia are people I'm friends with, and it's just cool to see. Interact Club is also the international lead on awareness for schistocytosis, which is a parasite that eats at children's brains and leaves permanent learning disabilities, and our Interact Club is the lead internationally on that. Today, I saved 3 lives by selling candy cane grams in the library. It's just a cool project that it's just cool that we get to be the lead on, and it's an international project, which is very cool. Our mock trial team is competing very soon. We got our competition case, and it's very exciting to get to work with lawyers and judges on that. Student council goes to convention next week to Tucson High School. We bring 12 students, and we get to be in a room full of 1,200 students who think like-mindedly. So it's very fun. This will be my 3rd year attending. It's just a cool process. We are actually bringing 3 freshmen this year, which is the most we've ever brought to hopefully build that foundation. I'm rooming with them, though, so pray for me. After that, we have a spirit week. So student council is also working on that.
Vanessa.
All right. So, as Ms. Bailey touched on earlier, January 30th, we have an early college day. This is where students are able to tour our main Yavapai College campus. They can apply for admission, register for classes, meet some of the professors there too, which I think is amazing. Being part of the MICTED program, I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for all these opportunities, especially for zero cost. Like Hannah, I myself am also paying for my college. So having these opportunities is such a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I will forever thank PUSD for that. February 3rd through the 7th, Abayajet is doing their Super Bowl food drive, the canned food drive. So that is something that I'm really hoping for, waiting for.
What's that date again, Vanessa?
It's February 3rd through the 7th that week.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And then on December 11th, last year, Evergreen, or S Club, the Women of S Club, we headed over to Evergreen Senior Living Facility. We made cookies, decorated Christmas ornaments, and passed out handmade holiday cards to our friends there. I work in a nursing home, and we are constantly doing small little gestures like these towards or for our residents. So being able to expand that and go onto other facilities, it was amazing seeing their faces light up, all the smiles. It made everything super worth it. This Friday, we have Club Day at PHS for both lunches, during both lunches. I would also like to further recognize 2 of our Varsity Spirit Line cheerleaders, Ashley, yes, Ashley and Allison Bates. They headed in December the 26th through January 2nd. They were on the top 12% of Varsity Spirit Line camps. They were recognized and invited to London, England to represent our Badgers for the London New Year's Day Parade, which I think is amazing. I'm super proud of all the amazing sports that PHS has to offer, and especially for these young ladies because, oh my gosh, they do an amazing job every single day, and I'm proud that they were able to be recognized this way.
Great.
That's awesome.
Great reports. Thank you. All right. Item 6B, community comments shared with with the governing board. Do we have any comments or anything shared? We're going to go over this a little bit later on in the meeting as well. Item 7, action items. Item 7A, consent agenda. Are there any items we'd like to highlight or pull?
I would like to just pull the donation to be dealt with separately, so we can mention the donations.
Any other items? Okay, that's item 7A2. Would you like to recognize those two?
We're just going to quickly go over the donations that have been made in the past month to our district. First one from Yavapai Title Agency $500 to the PHS Yellow Jacket Club. Judy Stencel, who we honored earlier this evening, gave a cash donation of her own of $500 to the Family Resource Center, which she is an amazing person to work with. We had an anonymous donation made to the Family Resource Center of $13.42. The First Congregational Church gave us a donation to Discovery Gardens for tuition help of $2,300 and $2,380. We had Alice Kring give a donation check to the Discovery Gardens tuition as well of $200. We had the Frontier Rotary Fund gave a donation to the Discovery Gardens tuition of $6,650. We had the student lunch debt taken care of, and we had a donation of $124 from Malforce to childcare. So those are all our donations just in the past month, and that keeps us afloat sometimes.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Awesome.
Good job.
Way to go, man. Your first motion. How's that feel?
You're in the box score now.
You're on the tape.
Motion, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda's been passed. Moving on to item 7B, study and voting session. Do we have any open call to, or any call to the public? Okay, thank you. Item 7B1, consider nominations and election for the position of governing board president. Mr. Tenney?
Yeah, so it's required at our January meeting of each year to have nominations for an election of a new governing board president and vice president. That's our next agenda item. And just a quick reminder, it's written in board policy what these folks do. The main roles of the president are to run our meetings and to interface with the superintendent, district leadership on creating the agenda for our meetings and other things of that nature. There aren't specific qualifications written into our board policies. Typical things in the past are someone who's got time to devote to the extra duties, someone who would have at least majority support from the board, and someone who's served on the board long enough to kind of know the routine a little bit. So, any questions about that from me? All right, go at it.
All right, so we'll consider a nomination for governing board president.
I would like to nominate Stam Gulagowski to do one more year as president. He did such a fantastic job last year. I think despite our difficulties, I think he's up for another year. So I nominate him.
Thanks, Jane.
I'll second that.
I'll third that.
I love it. All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you. I'd be honored to serve, and I've said it before, I want to enjoy this year, so thank you.
So this person, the new president, takes over running the meeting, so good luck with that.
All right. Okay. I'll take a nomination for, you don't want to say anything else?
No,
after that,
yep, I kind of covered it a minute ago.
So, nomination for governing board vice president.
I would nominate Jane Robertson to serve a second term as vice president of the board.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 None opposed? Good. All right.
He thirded that, didn't he?
Thanks, everybody.
Good, thanks, Brett.
All right, item 7B3, consider approving the intergovernmental agreement between Prescott Unified School District Number 1 and Kirkland Elementary School District Number 23. Mr. Moore.
We currently in PUSD have 3 EDP classrooms. It stands for disabled, emotional disability private placement. The private placement is a determination that the IEP team makes depending upon their success within the gen ed classroom or needing more structure and more supports to help them be successful in school. Our programs are very good and renowned, and we actually have an IGA with Chino Valley for this exact same thing. And this really mirrors that. Kirkland has potentially some need. They do not have an EDP program. And so if they do, and that the student in need, kind of fits and we think will do well within our well, depending upon what level, programs within PUSD, we would enter into an agreement and we would charge them tuition because they would be receiving the funding for that child. And this agreement allows us to even consider if we want to have one of their students come on over into our EDP program. Unless you have any other questions that I can answer, this is your voting item.
So to clarify, this would not lock us in ever to accepting a student from them if we don't have capacity in terms of numbers or in terms of the students' needs and the needs of the students that we already have in our program. But what we're asking for you to do is consider setting up the structure so that we could potentially consider that in the future. And if we do have capacity and it works well, then we would on administrative level determine whether or not that's a good fit. There is a student right now in Kirkland they're looking at that they may need, but we've made no determination about whether or not that's going to be a good fit. But we did feel it's a good idea to come to the board and say, hey, can we put the same structure in place for that potential situation like we have with Gina?
In Kirkland, if you remember, is one of the districts that do not have a high school, and thus their students come to us. So this will be a child or any potential student that may kind of fit the mold in what our program can provide. Would it be with us in 9th grade? And so they reached out. My phone just broke, but that's okay. They reached out to us because they did have a potential and student that they thought would be advantageous for that child, and even us getting to know that child before the 9th grade transition. So this just provides a structure for us even to start the conversations.
Outside of capacity issues, would there be any other issues that would prevent us from accepting a student?
Yeah, so capacity, I guess, would have two components to it. One is just the number of bodies, right? And then the needs of the student that might be coming to us, and the needs of the kids who are already there, the staffing that we've got available for that, et cetera. So capacity is multifaceted, but that would really be the main thing that we would look at.
Transportation would be interesting, so that would be another. Kirkland would need to, provide transportation to a place within our area that we've been operating with a skeleton crew with our special ed buses, and so we don't want to lengthen a trip for 8 other kids on the bus by a half an hour by going too far. If there are clauses within the IGA that if a student would need a one-on-one or things like that, that would be a cost that would be an additional above and beyond what the tuition quarterly is.
And that all follows, so especially like the transportation issue, state statute, I think, requires, and I could have this wrong, that if a student is in our district but requires services at an outside district, that we have to provide
transportation. In this case, Kirkland would need to provide the transportation, like Brian's saying, at least to some place where we could pick them up as part of a regular route.
Because by all means, from a state level, a student, if we follow this path, would be a student with Kirkland.
Right.
And we would just be providing educational services. And so the obligation on our side, until they're a 9th grader, would still be on Kirkland's side to meet us where it's not disadvantageous, not advantageous to the other kids on the bus.
Okay.
And this doesn't tie our hands in any, there's really no downside in approving this because we have all options going forward.
Right. Yeah. As far as the board is concerned, absolutely. If you don't, if you have in the back of your mind, I'm not really sure that the administration is going to make good decisions in the future about whether or not to seriously, I mean, if that's the only scenario I can think of that you would not be in favor of this. It's something that financially could be, there's a certain amount of funding that comes with students with higher needs. We would receive all of that funding plus a small premium that would benefit our other students in some respects. It could help our neighboring district. We always want to do that whenever we can, whether it's buses or student services or staff development or whatever it is. We do a lot of that, and we're proud of that.
And it would help this kiddo who
absolutely, and first and foremost, right, yeah. The center of the entire conversation is we've got an actual individual that we're looking to help out if we can. Again, that's not set in stone by any means. We're going to need to look at when the time comes, if this is in place, if they still have that need. Okay, we'll go and look at the paperwork that we've got around there, maybe do some observations, talk with the folks who've been working with them. What needs does this student have? Does that fit well with the group that we've got right now? And then make a determination on the administrative level whether or not we can then enact the structure that you're being asked to consider tonight.
And we're in a unique situation where we have 4 or 5 districts where the high school students come to us. So, you know, once again, this would be a 9th grade student coming to us, and there definitely can be advantages to that child's education and us getting to know at an earlier level before the transition shock of high school.
There are other options currently are to bus them all the way to Mayor or down to Phoenix, or to, you know, try to create a program for one student within their district, and they just don't have the resources to do that.
Yeah. We do this with Chino Valley. We approved that this
Yes.
last year. We don't see any issues with capacity, like with,
Well, again, we'd look at
We
Chino has
control it.
yet to, we got the structure in place. They have yet to say, hey, we've got a student. We
Yeah.
haven't looked at that yet, but when they do come to us and say, hey, we've got a student we'd like you to consider, well, absolutely, first thing we'll look at is capacity. And again, that's multifaceted.
Sure.
We control the setting of
Did I understand
acceptance.
it's limited to 3 kids? Or is it not really limited? It looked like there was a list for, like, space for 3, or we would allow up to 3.
I think it's, once
really-
again,
I
depending
believe
upon the
it's up to
capacity of the
3.
level of the students,
Within
whether,
this structure, I don't think we've got
I don't,
Okay.
I don't believe that there's a cap, because once again, it's all depending upon our enrollment as well, our capacity of services, and so if they had 4 and, you know, we didn't have a lot at the high school, then we could say, oh,
Kirkland has very few students start with, just a
Very.
few dozen students, so.
Yeah.
This would be once every several years situation probably with them, where they would even want us to consider it.
Do we have a number of how many students we have in our current EDP programs?
Up to 3, okay.
oh boy, I just looked at the the Lincolns, and I closed my computer.
It's okay. I
Hey,
just
Jen,
was
while he's
curious.
looking that
It
up,
doesn't
you're
really
exactly
show.
right. I didn't realize this
does
wording
say
was in there.
3.
It's unnecessary because there's no scenario in which there would be. But it says we could potentially agree to enroll up to 3, just like you said, 3 Kirkland students unless our classroom has reached 10. And again, we're not looking at just numbers. That's one of the things we'd look at, but the students' needs, both our current students and the potential new students,
And it
and how
looks like
that all
the
fits
parents
with the
have to
dynamic.
agree to a pretty robust agreement as well.
Yeah. And we're not locked into anything. If it doesn't work well, we can say, hey, we tried this, and et cetera. But we'd love to offer those services if we can. We're fortunate to have enough critical mass in our district where we've got a number of programs that our neighboring smaller districts don't have. And whether it's, you know, flag football or an EDP program or a bus mechanic, if we can help out, we'd like to help out.
Absolutely.
I'll take a motion to approve the IGA between PUSD number 1 and Kirkland Elementary School District number 23.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Moving on to item 7B4, consider approving the IGA between the City of Prescott and PUSD for the services of School Resource Officer at Granite Mountain Middle School. Mr.
Okay.
Tenney.
So tonight's kind of a good news night. I was thinking about safety-related things that happened recently. This was the third one, of course. Jamie Buna, who's our Director of Federal Programs and Grants, was made aware that the state has some additional funding potentially available to districts for just what we've already got set up, which is we've got a counselor, I think, at the high school, social worker at the high school, I guess, social worker at the high school, and our student resource officer at Mile High are being paid for 100% through a state grant. They have to have certain qualifications. We applied for that. That came in. We were granted that grant. We were successful with that grant application, I guess I want to say, and the board said yes on that. We're made aware that for the remainder of this year and next year, there's some more money available. We said, hey, let's apply for one for Granite Mountain. All the great things that our student resource officers do at the high school and the middle school can apply there as well, making great relationships with kids, being a role model, helping out with potential, low-level security issues that occasionally pop up, adding security to the campus in general, et cetera. And then we also applied for a social worker for Mile High, and we were successful with both grants. So we'll be coming, we actually don't need to come to you for an IGA for the social worker. We've posted for that, and Andy's working hard to help find somebody good. We're in the process of that, but the city, we've got an intergovernmental agreement with them to pay for essentially one of their police officers. We're very fortunate, even though they're relatively tight on their staffing, that they said, yeah, that's a priority for us as well. We'll make one of our officers available Monday through Friday, all during the school year, to be just on that campus, because the city sees the benefits of that as well. My understanding is it's already gone to the city council, and they've given a thumbs up on that. It might have been today, as a matter of fact. Anyhow, we're coming to you for our side of that.
Right, any?
No questions? Looks like we're providing $100 for classroom supplies, but send them to the closet.
There you go. All right, we can do that.
We can do that.
There was one area, just
Yeah.
looking at the agreement, item 1U, it's under suspension of performance due to COVID-19. It has PHS listed instead of
Okay.
Granite Mountain, so just one thing to look at.
Great, great. If you agree to approve this, would you do that, please, with an addendum,
Yeah.
taking out the word PHS?
Okay.
Granite
It
Mountain
is
instead.
correct, right? I mean, I'm not reading
The-
this wrong.
The city sent us a template for it. They used the template, I'm sure, that we
They just
had
moved
with them at the high school. I scanned over this. Our attorney has signed off on it, and we just didn't notice what you noticed. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah.
just noticed too, under 2A, it says GMMS instead of GMUES.
Okay?
The whole agreement, I think, says GMMS.
Okay,
Great.
yeah.
We can.
And I don't
The other one
know-
says US.
Well, it's Granite Mountain Upper Elementary
Upper elementary.
School.
I see it both ways sometimes in the
Yeah.
district.
We used to refer to it as Granite
Yeah.
Mountain Middle School, and so I'm sure they've got that, yeah. So again, if you'll make that note in your motion and your second, we just say, but in your motion, then we can vote on it that way.
All right, is there any other questions or comments? Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the IGA between the City of Prescott and PUSD for services of school resource officer at Granite Mountain Middle School
About upper elementary
with,
school.
or, Granite Mountain Upper Elementary.
Upper elementary.
I'll never get used
UES.
It's Granite Mountain. I'm just
I
kidding. All right, sorry. With the changes that were presented.
Great.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Oh, I will make a first on that, whatever it was that we just did.
Jen
Did you make it
gives
already?
motion.
Okay, second,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm still
Second.
trying to get past GMMS.
All right, motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, this next item is 7B5, consider adopting the PUSD's mission and vision statements. Mr. Tenney.
Super, okay. So we have had in Prescott Unified School District, like a lot of organizations, like most school districts, a mission statement and a vision statement. In addition to that, we also have a strategic plan and a portrait of a graduate and a motto. It's a lot of things to keep track of. We've been considering for some time updating our strategic plan. As we do that, we want to look at the strategic plan through the lens of the mission statement and the vision statement. What do we do, and what do we want to do, basically? We've been talking about that on the leadership level for some time. Should we update these? We've got that on our website somewhere. Does anybody remember where that is, et cetera? It was brought into sharp review for us at the beginning of this year. We had some leadership training. We had all of our district leaders, our principals, assistant principals, and some instructional coaches with us. And the person who's coming in was training us on a number of leadership things, but said, hey, we want to look at all this through the lens of your mission and vision statement. What are your mission and vision statements? And everybody in the room just kind of looked at each other. I don't even know what it says. We haven't, that's got so much dust on it, we haven't looked at it for a while. The current ones are pretty wordy, and honestly, we've not employed them in the way that we should. And so, again, that underscored for us that we probably ought to be looking at these more, if not updating them, as we'd been talking about. While we were having that kind of embarrassing moment of like, man, we don't know what our mission statement was, I thought to ask, how many people here know what our motto is? And essentially everybody in the room raised their hand, every child, every day. So we thought, okay, well, that's something that has captured people's imagination. It's easy to remember. And perhaps as we look at updating our mission and vision statements, we ought to think about incorporating that rather than having a motto and a mission and a vision and a portrait of a graduate. Maybe we could combine some of these things together, make it a little less unwieldy and a little more focused and updated. So anyhow, with that, went to the board, got some board members' input and said, yeah, why don't you get some input from people? So we reached out to all what do we have, Andy, full-time staff, 460-something staff members, 100 plus of whom are parents as well, and said, hey, give us some input. Here's where we're at. We got inputs regarding mission vision statement in a survey. If you've been on the board for the last year, I've been keeping abreast of the progress on this the entire time. If you're new, some of this is probably new to you, so I'm trying to catch you up a little bit. Anyhow, in September, we sent out a survey, said give us some feedback on this, and we were able for our mission statement to distill all of the feedback we got down to essentially 5 bullet points. And the proposed mission statement is to provide every child every day, right? There's our motto incorporated into it, with 5 things. We had 6 bullet points, I think, before that were a little bit more wordy. This isn't any more memorizable than our previous one. I want to acknowledge that for sure. So if we're looking for something that people can say off the top of their head, we're probably not there yet. If we're looking for something that really captures what it is that we're about in PUSD, maybe we're there. So I'd like you to give us input on that. But at any rate, we've distilled our mission statement down to that. And then our vision statement, the question that we asked people in the survey is, would you be comfortable with us combining that with our portrait of a graduate? And the feedback we got was overwhelmingly yes. So our proposed vision statement is, we will help all of our students develop the qualities found in the portrait of a graduate. And we used to have a pretty, here it is, kind of an outdated, sort of a black outline of a troglodyte wearing a graduation cap with all these things here in text that was hard to read. And we updated it a little bit. Ooh, that's kind of funky looking. It's egg-shaped up there. But, you know, it's round. It's actually round in real life. But that's where, yeah, you're exactly right. I think it's the projector. You know, got the feedback, drafted these, got with our district leadership team for their input, and we're able to tweak some things and solidify it a little bit further. I have sent it to the board in my weekly updates to you over the last few months and said, hey, here's where we're at. What input do you have for us? And so we've sought board input on it. That brings us to tonight's vote. I'm not married to this. We've tried to do as much legwork as possible for the board. If you think, hey, you know what, I think you're off to a good start, but we want to have our hands on this a little bit more. We'd like it to look a little different in the end. Awesome. One of the things that we'll be talking about later on this evening is a potential board retreat. We could spend some time on it then. Or if you're like, you know what, we have so many other things to talk about in the board retreat. I appreciate the work that's been done on this, and it looks pretty good. I'm ready to vote. Either way, whatever. I'm not going to be offended. Later on, there's something that if you don't vote on, I'm going to be offended. But this isn't it. Whatever you like, whatever you like. So that's where we're at. What questions do you have for me about mission, vision statement, or thoughts before you vote?
What is everybody kind of feeling?
The one thing I brought up to Clark the other day is that when we were
feedback.
at the ASBA conference, they spoke a lot about, at least in our first day, I felt like they spoke a lot about the importance of knowing our mission and being able to communicate that really just very easily to parents, constituents, like anybody, as to why we do what we do at PUSD. And I'm just not feeling like I'm going to remember it.
Right.
To say it
That's
off the top of my
feedback,
head.
yeah.
And so, you know, I do agree with you that every child every day has stuck more than I've ever seen anything in our school district really resonate with people.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that it begins there. I don't have a suggestion to fix it. I'm not saying, you know, I'm just saying I'm not sure it's as memorable or as easy to apply to decisions that we're making. Does this fit our mission? It might. We'd have to really have the mission right in front of us every time, which isn't a bad idea
right about
either, to
that.
have the mission right in front of us every time. Like, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really, I mean, if you notice on the agenda, it's right there, but we can't even look past it. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's.
The
I mean,
current-
it's
the current mission,
current
yeah,
agenda, the
yeah.
current. And I don't think I've really looked at it, and I think that's kind of what happens with a mission and vision statement, is it's so wordy that you don't remember it. And that's not just this organization. It's, I mean, I think almost every organization that has revamped theirs, I think what I've learned over the time is you gotta condense it. So I think to that end, I almost feel like it would be great as a group, as a board, that we do table it and go in and do it at our retreat. I think there's one thing, policy is very important, you know, that's a primary mission for us, but also this is something that we should know and communicate to the community, like you're saying, Jen. So I would propose that, but just want to get your feelings on it as well.
I would feel the same way. I think, I appreciate the idea of getting this down to something that we could work with as a board, as opposed to a lot of words that we have to all of a sudden whittle down, and then you get into all this discussion about, well, does is mean what is supposed to mean in here, and it's like, so I think this would be a great start for us as a board to take a look at and move forward.
We've got all that survey data that you could, take a step back, dig into and whatnot. Yeah, I agree. Personally, I'd like to see something that's a little bit more memorable. We talked a lot about that on the district leadership team level and thought that, if you get it to where it's just pithy and you can memorize it, it's not as meaningful. It doesn't really provide you the lens that you need to say, are we doing that? So I can see advantages either way. And I'm fully supportive of the board says, hey, I'd like to get my hands on this a little bit more. That's a cool thing for a school board to do, I think.
I think it's worth us getting together at the retreat, even if we don't change it. Because I just think it's worth the discussion for us as board members to sit down and look at in more depth what the mission and the vision statement is.
I agree. I think we'll probably look at it and go, wow, this was very thoughtful. They did a fantastic job, and they spent a lot of time on this, and I think it'd be nice for us to dig into it a little bit together as a group and have a conversation about it. But
Awesome. Yeah, great. So I'd like to take a stab at the motion, but I'd move to, and I'll make the motion, move to table the adoption of the PUSD mission and vision statement with the intent to discuss, and can we vote at the retreat as well? That's not a voting session.
Yeah, we won't have votes there, but you can come up with something for the next meeting to vote on.
Okay, so I'll end it with the intent to discuss at the board retreat. So I have a motion. Second?
I'll second it.
A motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes.
Super cool. I'm looking forward to that discussion. Thank you for taking an interest in that.
Okay. Item 7B6, consider adopting the PUSD Governing Board Operations Manual.
Okay, this is the one I'm emotionally tied to, just so you know.
You did a great job on it.
Boy, I can't remember which of our ASBA conferences we were at. It was probably the law conference, maybe, at the beginning of the year. The law conference, I attended a session where the ASBA folks, Arizona School Boards Association folks, were talking about work that they were doing to come up with a template for a board operations manual. We have a current board operations manual, Sarah, and printed out. How long is that manual roughly? So it's over 300 pages long. Each of our new folks in the past who said, welcome to the board, clunk, good luck wading through that. And it's been a little unwieldy. I'm reasonably certain that most people have not gone all the way through it and tried to process all of it. And we thought that's maybe not a real good format, a real useful format for folks. Fortunately, ASBA had lots of different suggestions for what it could look like, and so Sarah and I got together with Kelsey and Andy and Brian, and each of us kind of had pieces of it that we looked at and tried to take what we had, not make any material changes to what's already there, but just distill it down into a format that was a lot more processable. I think there's an introductory page and a half, and then there's a table of contents, and there's 15 pages of content instead of 300. Within that 15 pages are tons of links to essentially the other 300 pages worth of stuff, but you don't have to, please turn to page 247 to find that. You can scan through all the topics fairly readily. We tried to put it in easily understandable language, linked in all cases to what am I trying to say, policies, state statutes, et cetera, that back up the way that we do things. And so if you determine tonight that you'd like to adopt that as our board operations manual going forward, it does include tonight's presented version of the mission vision statement. So in your motion, I would recommend that you say, with the exception of the mission and vision statement that we'll be going to later, move that we adopt, blah, 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 blah. If you had any, again, I've shared this with the board a couple of times over the last month and asked for questions. I haven't fielded a lot of questions. I fielded some really nice feedback and comments, so I think from each of you. Thank you for that, because we have put a lot of time and effort into this. I feel very, very attached to it. So I'm just kidding. At any rate, Do you have questions about any of it, or do you feel like, yeah, this is a good distillation of information that's more useful than we've had in the past?
As a new board member, I thought it was incredibly helpful. So I loved it. It was manageable. I could click on things and it was just so easy to understand. And when at the conference, they had us go into our policies on the ASBA site. And I mean, it's super interesting, but also a lot. So this just really makes it so much more understandable. I love it.
Great. Covers topics like, how the new president and vice president should be elected and what happens at a board meeting and what gets on the agenda and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How board members should consider interacting with one another and with the public and how to, maybe some templates for answering questions as they come to you. Just a lot of things like that we hope you'll find useful.
Yeah, I think that part is really useful. That was one of the hardest things was understanding how to interact with each other outside of board meetings, understanding responses to emails or whatever that you get. It's intimidating at first, especially when you come in during a difficult period. It's hard to know how to respond to a lot of those things. So that's very, very helpful. The expectations for board members as far as behaviors goes is super important as well.
All based in policy and best practices from the ASBA level and whatnot, yeah. Sarah and I didn't say, how would we like to see board members behave? Let's write it down. All of that's in other places, and we just tried to make it a little bit more digestible. And it's true, Mr. Ferry, you're right, we've had some bumps in the way that our board operated over the last year and tried to think through that lens a little bit and how could we, what information could we have available for people that they could refer to readily to help us make good decisions going forward.
Yeah, it's way more concise, and those important policy points are listed in here. And if we would have had that, I think you remember it a lot more, and I think we could follow it, or at least we as a board or any board member could refer to it if any one of us might be out of line or whatever it might be. So I appreciate the work that's been done and really smart just putting links in there.
I was just going to say that having the links there is so helpful.
Good. Yeah, I appreciate that. As far as usage, we envision, if you approve it, that anytime a new board member is elected or appointed, we would immediately do that to her or him, first of all, and that perhaps if we have a retreat at the beginning of years, as we've had in the past, that's a time to go through parts of it and refresh our memories, update it if necessary, whatever, that type of thing. And then also, as you suggest, if we ever have an issue, we're like, this is kind of funky, the way that we're dealing with each other or the way that we're dealing with this issue. Look back and see, is there something that helps guide us in a way that our policy and state law suggests we ought to do.
Great. Anything else? All right. I'll take a motion to adopt the PUSD Governing Board Operations Manual with the exception of the mission and vision statement.
So moved.
Motion second.
I'll second it.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passes. We'll move on to item 7C, information discussion items. Mr. Moore has prepared the school board summary budget report for your review.
Typically, I just say as presented, but, I had some good questions from some governing board members. And so this really is just a summary of where we stand up until the last day of the previous month. You'll see a budget column. The budget, when it comes to the grants, the budgets are pretty set. It's allocations, including carry forward. Our M&O is student-driven. Our DAA, which is district additional assistance, our capital money, it's student-driven. Both of those can have carry forward, and so those budget line items is straight out of our adopted budget. The other accounts on the more towards the bottom, I consider them cash accounts because they're not based on allocations. Like our civic fund is when we rent our buildings and we get revenue. Those type of accounts, I just look at what our revenue expected is going to be, and any carry forward, and that really sets what that budget is. We get Indian gaming money, and it's about $140,000 every year, and so that's what drives the budget. Otherwise, other than that, expenses are just those. We've actually paid it out either to people or services. And then anything encumbered, money's become encumbered in one of two ways. The minute we put a position into our accounting system, it automatically encumbers the whole year's worth of salaries and benefits. The other way is whenever we do a purchase order, which is just a contract between us and a vendor, that they're going to provide a service or a product and we're going to pay in the future, it automatically encumbers the money. And so really the balance is the budget minus the expenses minus the encumbrance, and you get your balance for the account that's shown. If you have any suggestions on how you would like to improve this document, Jane did suggest putting kind of the unrestricted, restricted, and what areas in which the spending is allotted. We get to operate with 40 plus funds that all have different stipulations on how they can be spent. So
Actually, didn't know that's what I was doing, but.
you did a good job,
Thank you.
Jane. Oh, you know what? Or was that car? It was
No, I
one
think
of-
it was,
I think it was
me.
you.
Yes.
So anyway, as presented, unless you have questions or suggestions on what you would like to see in the future.
One of the things that was helpful to me when you answered my questions, Brian, was understanding which funds can roll forward and which ones are kind of a use it or lose it, setup, so that we would know that fund ends this year, essentially.
If the governing
so-
board would like, I could put like an asterisk next to those funds and have a footnote.
It might just be helpful to know
Yeah.
what we don't get to roll forward.
Okay.
Because I know there's some you had mentioned that we have to use
And
those funds
as a
in that
general-
current year.
As a general rule of thumb, those are grant funds
Most,
typically.
yeah,
right?
every one of them I outlined for
That
you
you
were
outlined are
grant
grants,
funds.
yeah. But it wasn't every grant, is it? Like there
No,
are some that you don't
No,
have to.
like
right.
our IDEA, our
Yeah.
SPED grant, carry forward, Title I, carry forward.
Right.
But Perkins, which is our CTE federal and state priority, which is our state CT, use it or lose it.
It just might be helpful to know that as we're looking at
Yeah.
the numbers each month to see where we are
All right.
and whether or not we can count on that money in the future. You know what I mean?
Sounds good. I'll make that change for next month.
And Brian, we have funds too that we spend it and ask for reimbursements, right? And some of the entitlement grants, is that correct?
It's mostly either,
Yeah.
most of the federal grants are on a reimbursement. So we
Okay.
get our allocation, we spend, and then we put in for a reimbursement.
Yeah. Would that help, Jen, if you were like looking at that, knowing like month to month?
Mm-hmm.
Because it would be in a negative, but knowing it's reimbursed, it's almost like.
But on this document, it wouldn't show
Wouldn't
that,
show it?
because we're
Okay.
putting our allocation as a budget, we're showing real-time expenses and encumbrances, and
Okay.
that dictates. The reimbursement aspect is just the back end of
The work done.
us
Okay.
getting the money at the treasurer's office, and really has no bearing on the document
Okay,
itself.
good, thanks, appreciate that. All right, moving on to item 7C2, review the proposed changes in ASBA Policy 808, Volume 36, Number 6, from November 2024. Andy?
Yeah, I have three first read policy proposals tonight. The first one is from ASBA Policy Advisory relating to some changes made by the State Board of Education around the regulations for special education. There's actually, 47 pages in this, but the changes only are one little section on page, I think it was 28, I wrote down somewhere. I think it was 28. But just, it's a change that is really something that we've already been implementing. It relates to making sure what is included on IEPs when we're talking about transition for students at the high school level. And so the specific regulation change was making sure that it was written in at least a year in advance of their graduation date. So again, I talked to our special ed director, and she explained that that's something that for the most part is already happening, but now it's in policy. So any questions on that? Okay, if you do, of course, let me know between now and next month.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, typically in this, what we do is, we have 30 days, we can review it. So before our next board meeting, we'll get it's considered a second reading, correct? And we
Yes.
vote on it at that time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then,
And just to clarify, it's neither required by state statute nor by our board policy to do it this way, but we feel it's a really good mode for you. Anytime we're looking at adopting or changing a policy, to give you a lot of time to hear about it initially, think about it, ask questions for a whole month, and then come back to you. For the most part, they're pretty workaday, clerical kinds of things. But occasionally there's something of significance and important. We want to have a lot of time. We don't want to come to you one night and say, hey, let's make a big change tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, there's actually a couple other changes in this one. They changed, I think, child to student. So, things like that are often in these changes, but they're nothing significant.
Thanks, Andy.
All right.
Moving on to item 7C3, review of the proposed changes to ASBA policies BEDB and BEDH. Andy.
Yeah. So I'll start with BEDB. This is a recommendation that we actually we voted on this policy back last summer, and it relates to a governing board agenda. And we added a component here really just to provide clarification on what that community comments shared with board members should and should not include, really for the primary purpose of making sure we're following legal requirements where we're not bringing up topics or having detailed discussion or comments of things that aren't on the agenda. And of course, they can any board member can bring up a topic and ask to have it be on an agenda for future meetings, but not to have it be kind of a way to circumvent the agenda. So that is the one and only change to BEDB.
If
And
there
then-
are questions about that, do we need
Yeah.
to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So this was a concern that I brought up, and I think other board members brought up after the last meeting when, in essence, a community member was allowed to speak to an item that wasn't on the agenda. And the board member read their letter. And so in essence, that community member was given the opportunity to speak. And so I thought we needed to make sure that there shouldn't be, the community comments section, I don't feel should be something that gives a sympathetic board member an opportunity to read into the record something that wouldn't be allowed to be read into the record anyway. So that's the motivation that I had in putting this forward as an agenda item.
Yeah, no, I think a number of us voiced the same thing, and honestly, if we look at even our board manual, I mean, there's a portion on there that talks about, one, the statement was made anonymously, and we will not consider anything that is ever part of it being anonymous. And then also, not take the opinion of one person, for us to be encouraged to, if we hear it from several people, then you can kind of vet it and then bring it to us. But it was my mistake to just allow it to be read, and I think if we had this and we really studied it, it didn't feel right. We knew that, but at the time we just didn't stop it. Okay, so we just want to do this, especially clean slate, first meeting here, and I like the way that it's written. That you put in here, Andy. It's just, yeah, I think it covers what we encountered last meeting.
Good to hear that the wording reflects the intent of the board members who got with us with this concern. Thanks for that feedback.
Okay. The other change is to policy BEDH, which similar topic here, public participation at board meetings. This change actually comes, really the change is just a clarification to make sure that what our policy, what our exhibit is really aligned. We've practiced for years the idea that if we want to provide the public an opportunity to speak to an agenda item, the policy didn't, it kind of implied that, but it didn't explicitly say that. Our exhibit explicitly clarified that, so we just wanted to make sure that the policy and the exhibit kind of use the same language. So added that section in there. Also, section D there, we again, our agenda uses the phrase public comments rather than open call. So change that as well.
And
questions on that?
I'm sorry.
No, any questions?
Just curious, so our policy allows for speaking to items that are voting items, not just things that are agendized. So is that something that we need to be sure we're doing?
It
Because
says on the study and voting section.
yeah,
So
but
you're exactly right. That's been our long-time procedure, and that's what's explicated in the exhibit. That's with this policy, but we looked at the actual word, Andy got this, looked at the actual wording for the policy the way it is currently and said, it's a little bit ambiguous. So let's make sure it's not ambiguous. It goes with the intent of what the board has said they want for our meetings, which is to not have an open call to the public, but to have a call to the public on voting items. So we're not going to have somebody come in and say, you know, I really don't like where Jane put her garbage cans last week, or, you know, Jen Bergamini really makes me mad. She sits here at the football game and cheers too loud, that kind of. If it's on the agenda for us to vote on, absolutely. What you've told us is you want to hear from the public on that. Otherwise, there's lots of ways for the public to get with you on issues other than standing up in a board meeting and taking the public's time to talk about something that's not a voting item.
I think we may need to be specific then and say it should be agendized as a voting item, not necessarily on
the
study and voting.
I understand, okay.
It should be agendized as
On
a
the
voting.
vote.
Okay, so just
On the
more
voting
clarity too.
section
That's
of
good
the
feedback.
Okay,
agenda.
I see.
I think that's a good idea.
Are you comfortable with us making, well, I guess this is just discussion. Let me ask for some direction to the staff here. Are you comfortable with us making that wording change? I need some consensus rather than a vote here because we're not voting. And bringing it to you with that change for a second read next month, or do you want to start over with a first read next month?
Comfortable with the
Everybody
second
happy?
reading.
We're all happy.
Is that the consensus, is to add the wording, and you got that,
Just
Andy,
basically
for Mr. Fair?
taking out that
Perfect,
one.
perfect. Just add the words as a voting item in the study voting session. Perfect.
Great suggestion, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. All right. Any other discussion on that? Or, I know this isn't really, this is information only. All right, we'll move on to item 7C4, consideration of possible book study revival, or revived.
Revival of the book study. So it's common, I don't want to say best practice, but common positive practice in a lot of boards to have some kind of a book study. And a year and a half ago, I think it was actually Mr. Administrative colleague of Mr. Binders got with him at an ASBA conference, and they were having a discussion about something and introduced us to this book with a tongue-in-cheek title, but with some great content, How Not to Be a Terrible School Board Member. It would probably be better if it said How to Be a Great School Board Member. That's what the idea here, but I think to sell books and get people's interest, he calls it that. We went through, 3 or 4 chapters together as a group with our previous board, and found those discussions a little unwieldy because we found ourselves often not on the same page, so to speak, both figuratively and literally, I guess, with this. And so the consensus from the board president and other board members at the time was, why don't we just table that? Let's not keep digging back into that, where it gives people an opportunity to start our meeting off in a way that's not as positive. But in January, let's talk about it again. So at your direction, here it is, January, and I'm bringing it up. I think Brett bought his own copy. Wow, there you go. You won't be a terrible board member.
That's a bonus.
I talked with Jen, and she said, sure, I'd like one, so I got her a copy of that. And I think each of us has access to a copy, and if you'd like, I guess my recommendation would be, and I'd love your feedback, is to starting next month, same kind of thing, set aside 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning of each board meeting. I think we could take it a little bit faster pace with this group. We did one at a time and kind of dug in a little deeper. I think maybe we could do a couple of chapters or a couple of case studies maybe each time, potentially spend 5 to 7 minutes talking about each one and what'd you learn as you scanned over that. They're about 4 pages long. It's not a lot of extra reading in your life. Yeah, and absolutely. We can start wherever you want. I intentionally, I'll tell you, I started partway in the book last time. I can't remember what the first chapter is, but somebody remind me. It was something that seemed a little edgy, and I didn't want to start off edgy. Oh, yeah. Terrible habit number 1 is to humiliate a district employee in public. So obviously what we want to do is not humiliate district employees in public, right? I didn't want to start off with our previous makeup of our board suggesting that, hey, we're doing some things wrong. Let's fix this. I know that there's some people who kind of viewed almost anything that came up in a different way than was intended at times. So we started partway through the book, but I think we'd be good to do something that pretty typical, start at the beginning of the book and just roll through a couple of times. So that would be my recommendation, but I'm open to whatever you like. A couple of chapters each month. Again, you're probably looking at 5 to 8 minutes of total reading, and then just, hey, what'd you learn and what? And one of the things I like about this, in fact, the subtitle explicates it, it's lessons for school administrators and board members. So it's not just, hey, you guys, you should do this right. It's all of us. Let's all be cautious around certain things and make sure we're supporting each other and doing things right to make sure the school district is pointing in a positive direction for kids. So,
Great idea.
is that the consensus?
Let's do it.
Okay, great. We'll put that as a study session. I think that's what we did before, right? We had an actual study session before our study and voting meeting for, whatever, 10, 15 minutes.
So the meeting would start at 5:15, right?
Yeah.
We do the study, okay.
Right. That's the mode that we took before. So we'll start at 5, but the part that the public could potentially participate in with our regular template would start 5:15-ish. I think is what we'd advertise to the public, that they're welcome to come as early as 4:30. Doors will open for our study session. That will start at 5. There'll be about 15 minutes to that. People use the restroom or whatever, and then we'll get rolling at about 5:15 with the typical agenda. If that works for people.
Great. Okay. All right. Move on to item 7C6, request for future agenda items. Anybody have any? What is that? Oh, I did? Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Eager to get to that.
I know. Was it? 7C5, discussion of date and potential study items for special study session or board retreat. Mr. Denny.
So this was something we also did pretty regularly, I want to say, in the past, about annually. More often, if something unusual or significant came up that we really wanted to dig in, a lot of boards take an opportunity periodically, once or twice a year, to have just a study session meeting or a special meeting, which is only a study session, no voting occurs. It's open to the public. It could be held here in this room. It could be held someplace else nearby. We'd want it to be accessible to any members of the public who'd want to join us. But to talk in more depth about things like, in the past, some of the agenda items were, should we look at potentially going to our community for an override or a bond? If so, what would that look like? That type of thing that we want to have a longer discussion about. You've come up with an agenda item of your own tonight, I think, that would fit well into this. You'd like to look at the mission and vision statements, take the work that's been done and modify it and come up with something that reflects where you'd like to see the district, and something that's maybe a little bit more, rolls off the tongue a little better, right? Yeah. I like that idea. There's a number of things that we could come, and we don't have to, in the next 45 seconds, come up with our agenda items, but it might be good to look on people's calendars. In the past, we've often done it in February. It's also a good time to dig into sort of where we're at with our draft direction of budget based on the feedback that we're going to be getting from staff members and anybody who's gotten with us throughout the year on priorities. So we could dig into several topics. So those are 2 or 3 that come to mind for me. But my recommendation would be, if you'd like to try to come to, again, not vote on, but come to a consensus of dates that would work for each of you, that we'll get back with you to confirm and then share with the public. And then if you've got sample topics that you'd like to have on that agenda, we could jot down 2, 3, 4 of those tonight and bring those up.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, I propose that we do it in February, as soon as possible. Sarah, would you be willing to do kind of it's not a survey, what is that, a calendar? Sure. What is that called? I don't know. Yeah, I know, where you can kind of see where our dates are, so I'm sure we're all over the place. But,
So maybe reach out tomorrow by email if you'll be looking for that, and with some dates that, this date's not going to work for me. Well, I'll tell you what we've done in the past, format and timing-wise, we've started with maybe like breakfast and worked through 1 or 2 in the afternoon, so it's been most of a work day. That is a sacrifice to ask people to make, but it's not something we would plan to regularly do. No. So,
and I'd like to have it more of just an atmosphere that we could, where there's more discussion. I think the last time we had one, there was a lot of information that was given to us, and in my view, it really didn't give us a chance to kind of look at it as a group in one sitting when we were able to in an open public meeting, kind of just see where everybody's at, so.
Am I remembering correct, last time we had some folks come in and train us on boardsmanship and whatnot? So some of the things that you were able to go over in your ASBA conference. So I don't know if there's a need for that. Yeah, just discussion amongst board members might be a better format this time.
That'd be great.
I am gone the first week of February. I don't know if I miss the retreat, then I miss the retreat, but just to let you know.
And the 7th is that Bolts conference
So
in
that's perfect, 'cause
Flagstaff,
that's when I get back.
Yeah, ideally it'd be a day when people
Or here.
expect now that they'll be available. If something comes up, whatever, there's a dental emergency or you get sick or whatever it is, that we could roll. But we'd like to, if we could, have a date that everybody says, I think that date's going to work for me.
Great. Excellent. All right. Now,
Window emergency, could be a window emergency. Sorry, we need to-
I know.
A realty emergency.
Mr. President, I have an urgent matter. What's the protocol if I need to use the restroom in the middle of the board meeting?
We're actually probably in the last
I'll move
300
fast,
seconds
okay,
of the
Brett?
regular.
Okay, sorry, buddy. Okay,
would be
so
great.
are there any future agenda items that you want to list? Okay, hearing none.
12 of them.
Yeah, right. Listen slowly.
I loved having the students here. I loved Hannah being here.
Yeah,
Every time we can put a kid on the agenda,
Okay.
I think that's
We'll
a
plan to
plus.
have one or two people, just real briefly like that in the future. Good feedback. Thank you.
Then item 7C7, meeting dates. So our next meeting will be at 5 o'clock. We'll start with the book study, and then the meeting will start at 5:15 on February 4th. And then key dates is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Monday, January 20th. So schools are out that day. And then I would actually like to break for a recess before we move into action items, okay? So let's recess.
Into executive session.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring that up afterwards. Go ahead, Brian.